We're going to follow the truth where it leads. We're going to engage in due process because, again, we're the rule of law party.
Really? The rule of law party? I mean, 48 hours ago, does this look like the rule of law party? Well, to you?
Mr. Johnson, you helped lead the efforts to overturn the 2020 election results. Will you
Next question.
Yeah. That's the new Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson from Louisiana. I am Fred Wellman, host of On Democracy with FP Wellman, right here in the MeidasTouch network. Yeah, well, we have a new Speaker of the House after 3 weeks of dorking around trying to find somebody. They got Mike Johnson. Have you heard of him? Probably not. But he's already doing his thing. He's out and about. He's got his first couple of days in office. And of course, he had to do his official coming out with the official spokesman of the Republican Party, Sean Hannity. Here's a picture of him. Wait a minute, that's not Sean. That's the guy from the Hunger Games. Well, you get it. Anyway, had to do an interview with Sean Hannity to roll it out in 48 hours, and he was talking in that clip about President Biden and the impeachment. Let's watch the whole clip about what he has to say about impeaching President Biden.
It's a real problem. That's the reason that we shifted into the impeachment inquiry stage on the president himself, because if in fact all the evidence leads to where we believe it will, that's very likely impeachable offenses. That's listed as a cause for impeachment in the Constitution. Bribery and other high crimes and misdemeanors. Bribery is listed there, and it looks and smells a lot like that. And I think the evidence, we're going to follow the truth where it leads. We're going to engage in due process because, again, we're the rule of law party. I know people are getting anxious and they're getting restless and they just want somebody to be impeached, but that's not. We don't do that like the other team. We have to base it upon the evidence, and the evidence is coming together. We'll see where it leads.
Oh boy, the rule of law party. They're going to follow the facts where they go, and they're all about following the law and all that things. But is he? I mean, let's be honest. This guy was actually one of the key architects of the January 6th legal arguments to keep Trump in office. He was in there, deep in it. He is actually the guy who devised the idea of using a state lawsuit to contest the outcome of the election from other states in an attempt to quickly get it to the Supreme Court. Their reasoning was simple, that they created a brief, if a bunch of congressmen signed off on it, that it would cause the Supreme Court, which they've loaded with their own people, to rule that some of these states should not be allowed to turn in the electoral votes they counted. He was the leader of that. Was it legal? No, Supreme Court didn't even look at it, but he was the guy. But he wants you to believe it's all about the rule of law party. And that's where we are. He's avoided any responsibility for the violence that happened today, and he won't stand up for the lawbreakers, in his own, or won't stand up to the lawbreakers in his own ranks. But here's the thing you have to watch about this whole interview that I love the most. Here he is. This is just the most amazing part. In one clip, thanks to Aaron Rupar, by the way, in one clip he says, "Oh, we're the rule of law party. We're all about the law." And then he gets asked about, well, I mean, if you believe that he really does believe in the rule of law and you really do buy that, you would be wrong. Because why? Well, let's ask about George Santos and see how that goes.
We're going to follow the truth where it leads. We're going to engage in due process because, again, we're the rule of law party.
Yeah, they're all about the rule of law until they got a 4-person majority in the House. Well, he's willing to bend that moral compass of his as long as he can keep his majority a little while longer. Hey, look, the fact is George Santos is guilty as hell. Everybody knows it. Other people have been kicked out for much less things in the Congress. But while Mike Johnson says, literally in the exact same interview, they're all about the rule of law, in the same interview says, well, he's just accused. That's the classic political bullshit. David Pepper, my friend David Pepper, had a great thing. We're peers with Every State Blue and other organizations called Blue Ohio. I'm with Forgotten Democrats. And they did some research to discover very quickly that Mike Johnson is exactly what happens when someone runs for office basically without any opposition. You will not believe this story. So Johnson was, of course, a lawyer, right-wing lawyer, working for groups like the Noah's Ark, whatever, the Ark Adventure Project, trying to get government funding for them, anti-LGBTQ legislation. He fought gay marriage. He fights for outlawing abortion. That's what he did for years. He had a right-wing radio talk show, of course, in Louisiana. Well, a seat came open where he lives in Louisiana, and he ran for office. Louisiana, of course, if you don't know, has open primaries. You sign up, everyone runs at the same time. If no one gets 50%, there's a runoff. In his case, no one ran at all. He was actually elected to the House of Representatives in Louisiana with no opposition. Filed a bunch of laws that were so bad they never even made out of committee in a Republican-controlled House. And then he ran for re-election. Well, did he? Unopposed again. And essentially what that means in Louisiana, all he did was file the request and the signatures, get on the ballot, and they even canceled the election. So his 2 times in the House of Delegates in Louisiana were completely unopposed. Well, with that stellar record of achievement, of course he had to run for Congress when a seat came open. And his record there was exactly what you expect. They gerrymandered the hell of their districts down there. He ran in 2016, 2018, and 2020 with margins, you're not going to believe this, 30 points. He won by 30 points in 2016, 2018, and 35 in 2020. And not to be outdone, in 2022, he was one of the guys that ran completely unopposed. 23 races across the country for Congress were unopposed. And of course, Mike Johnson, Louisiana, was one of them. And now he's elevated to Speaker of the House. And here's the punchline, you guys. He's never even run a committee. He's never run a caucus. This is a guy who's only been in Congress for a few years, 4 or 5 years. He's the least qualified as far as experience goes speaker in over a century. And they elevated him all the way to the most powerful guy, the guy who has to organize his caucus, decide what goes before the Congress for votes, all of that with the snap of a finger because they couldn't find somebody they all agreed on, and they ended up finding some of those egregious anti-democracy players in the entire House of Representatives because your Republican Party had acted.
Did you know that poor sleep can cause weight gain, mood issues, poor mental health, and lower productivity? Sleep is the foundation of our mental and physical health and performance in our days. Having a consistent nighttime routine is non-negotiable. And let me tell you something. When I don't get enough sleep, you do not want to be around me the next day, I assure you. I'm excited to introduce you to Beam Dream. You may have heard your friends and other hosts on MeidasTouch talk about Beam's Dream Powder. And this is their healthy hot cocoa for sleep. And today, our listeners get a special discount on Beam's Dream Powder, their best-selling healthy hot cocoa for sleep with no added sugar. It's now available in delicious flavors like sea salt caramel, cinnamon cocoa, chocolate peanut butter. I love peanut butter. And better sleep has never tasted better. Dream contains a powerful all-natural blend of reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, melatonin, and nano CBD to help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up refreshed. A recent clinical study revealed Dream helped 93% of users wake up feeling more refreshed, and 93% reported that Dream helped them get a more restful night's sleep. So you just mix Beam Dream with hot water or milk, or stir and froth it all together, and enjoy it before your bedtime. I've personally tried Beam Dream and it lived up to the hype. First off, it was delicious and just a lovely nighttime routine. And secondly, most importantly, helped me fall asleep and stay asleep. The next day, I woke up ready and eager to take on the day. Find out why Forbes and the New York Times are all talking about Beam and why it's trusted by the world's top athletes and business professionals. If you want to try Beam's best-selling Dream Powder, get up to 40% off for a limited time when you go to shopbeam.com/Fred and use code Fred at checkout. That's shopbeam.com/Fred. Use code Fred for up to 40% off. Thank you, Beam, for being a supporter of our show.
And I've seen a lot of people criticize saying the Dems could have done something. No. This is the moderate Republicans. I mean, let's not forget, Buck was absolutely against the idea of an election denier being elevated. Jim Jordan taking over House Speaker of the House, he's an election denier. Oddly, Buck was okay the next week when an election denier, the guy who put the whole thing together, he got elevated.
I am, yes.
One of the things about the last week, when it came to Jim Jordan, one of the things that you said was that you were not a fan of the fact that he did not vote to certify the election. He did not, he bought into the sort of election denialism. I wonder, when it comes to Mike Johnson, I mean, he also didn't vote to certify the election. So how can you support him?
Well, no, that's not what I said about Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan did a number of things. If you look at the January 6th report, the commission report, that sort of were election denialism in their highest degree. He sent a text message to Mark Meadows on a legal theory of how people on the floor could vote not to certify the election. He was on a phone call, 2 phone calls with President Trump while the riot was going on. Jim Jordan was involved in all of the not all of the, but much of the post-election activity. Mike Johnson was not. He voted to decertify, absolutely. That wasn't my vote, but I can't. We need to move forward. We have some important business.
So you think it's okay for him or any other speaker candidate to have voted to decertify the last election, which was free and fairly won by Joe Biden?
I don't think it's okay, Abby. I think it's a mistake, but I think people make mistakes and still can be really good speakers. We're at a point now where we need to move forward and make sure the government stays open, that we fund Israel, we fund Ukraine, we fund the border efforts, and that's going to take a human being in that speaker position. Not a perfect human being, but a Mike Johnson who has done his very best to move issues forward and is a really good.
My own representative, Ann Wagner, she was dead set against Jim Jordan on Friday, and she was all for Jim Jordan on Monday, because the Republicans actually have no moral compass. They're not willing to smash and throw out. And Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, he's now the guy leading that, and he is one of them. So don't be fooled by his polished demeanor and his perfect hair. He's just another guy. And I got to tell you, he's truly failing up. And we'll see it unfold. Hopefully we'll see something work out. I don't know. If nothing else, we're definitely going to be running against Mike Johnson here next fall. But all I got to say about all of this is just this.
Next question.
Yeah. Boo. Shut up. I'll see you Friday night right here on the MeidasTouch Network.
Hey Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.